Hi guys, BuildZoid here, and we're back with the RX 9070 with no power limit and external voltage control, and today we're going to be overclocking it, but benchmarking it with Cyberpunk 2077, because after the previous video, it occurred to me that probably most people's exposure to a unlocked RX 9070 would be this. Oh, man, I am so good at making videos. Anyway, this video from David Does Tech Stuff, where he put an XT BIOS onto a regular 9070 and got an absolutely just massive performance increase by doing that. Because, yeah, at stock he was getting 118 FPS, and then with the XT BIOS it went up to 148, and then with some undervolting he got up to 153. And so if you look at his performance scaling, that's going like 153 FPS over 118. Oops. Yeah, so that's like 29% more FPS. And if my card scaled like that in TimeSpy, you would expect my card to be getting, instead of like mine maxed out at like it was 26765. There we go. So in the previous video, I was basically maxing out at like 33,500 points. But if the performance was scaling like David's card scaled with the XT BIOS, you would have expected, like 34,700 points. Which I wasn't anywhere near that, right? Like I was maxing out at 33,500. And so it occurred to me that maybe like Cyberpunk scales very differently. And so that's why we're going to test my 9070 with Cyberpunk today. Because, yeah, like, I wanted to see how my card compares to his card. Because it would be kind of lame if I did all of those modifications and I was basically getting the same performance he is. So, yeah, so that's what we're going to do today. Especially the voltage control, right? Like, the power limit, like, yeah, I think just flashing the XT BIOS mostly handles the power limit side of things, but the voltage control not, helping that much would make me very upset. So anyway, that's what we're doing. Now, he used 1440p Ultra. I'm assuming that's just the 1440p Ultra preset and not like he didn't do anything else. I'm not sure what CPU he used. I'm sure he mentioned it in the video. I wasn't paying enough attention, and also I'm not gonna swap CPUs even if I did know what CPU he used. So, yeah, we're on the 9700X with some overclocked memory, which I wouldn't really consider to be the pinnacle of GPU benchmarking CPU configurations, right? That would be more like a 14900K or a 9800X 3D. But anyway, here we go. So go into settings, and we're going to start with the card completely stock, right? So you can see I just reset the card, so hopefully there wasn't some weird bug that like left the like mild undervolt that I put on there enabled. But yeah, so we're going to do a baseline run. And under graphics, yeah, we're set to ultra. Video, we're 1440p. So let's just run the benchmark, I guess. Also, while we're waiting for this to run, a big thank you to the channel supporters for funding the purchase of the GPU and the game. Because, yeah, this really, like, I know Cyberpunk 2077 is, like, a big release for most people, but, it, like, I literally just, I don't know, don't care. Didn't really, like, yeah, I was, yeah. So I bought it literally just to make this video. So, I still don't know what the game, well, I mean, I do know what the game is about, but, like, I still just haven't, like, I haven't even, like, considered playing it. Like, I've literally just bought it for the benchmark. I don't know. I really hope there wasn't a free way of getting the benchmark. Because that would have been really stupid of me to spend, I don't know, I think 50 quid for a benchmark. That would easily make this the most expensive benchmark I've ever bought. Because I got 3D Mark on Steam sales. Um, but, I wanted like comparison numbers, so I couldn't come up with a better way of doing things. Okay, so I'm getting 147 average and 125 minimum. So that's about the same as what David was getting, right? Because he's getting a 148 average, 112 minimum. I'm gonna assume that's probably due to the like memory being overclocked on my system. Um, so anyway, I'm probably running the correct preset. So now let's do some overclocking. We're just gonna start again with just like basic undervolting stuff. Um, We're also going to crank the fan speeds a bit. Actually, what temperature did it max out at? 84.4 degrees. So this isn't running super hot. Like, it honestly might be a little bit CPU bottlenecked in this configuration, I think, because the card doesn't really seem to be pulling that much power. Yeah, the GPU core current maxed out at like 190 amps, which it's not much. It's not much at all. Anyway, so I think we're gonna start with like minus 75 on the voltage offset. So what's kind of wacky with these 9000 series cards is how much voltage offset you can run really heavily depends on what software you're running, because and it's not even necessarily that the like highest power consumption benchmarks are the hardest to run, because oftentimes, like the sort of first surprise that I got with this was that I spent a bunch of time like overclocking the card in TimeSpy, and then I went to run 3D Mark 11, which is ancient. It's in fact so old and so CPU bottlenecked by the 9700X that like the GPU's memory wouldn't even go into full 3D mode, and I managed to crash the card. With settings that were perfectly stable in TimeSpy. So, yeah, with the RX 9000 series, that's definitely something to watch out for, is that, like, just because it's stable in one piece of software does not mean it's going to be stable in every piece of software. Um, so, yeah. Oh, that's going to be loud and annoying. There we go. This way is just going to ramp as soon as the card's actually under load. Let's just run again. I kind of like the fact that Cyberpunk has like a warm-up phase, because it hits the GPU on the loading screen. Whereas, like, a lot of the 3D marks, like I was complaining in the previous video how you could see in TimeSpy how the GPU, like, ramps up to its full speed. Here, that's not a concern, because the card is already hitting full speed on the loading screen. So, honestly, that's kind of better behaved than 3D mark in that way. Because yeah, you don't get that like awkward like waking up sequence for the GPU. Um, Also, this isn't super long, which I appreciate. It's no Unigine Heaven or 3. I mean, I like 3D Mark Vantage, but it is a bit long. So that's 154.22. Also, well, the minimums went up again. Oh well. So at this point, my card is just faster than David's, but that could just be Silicon Lottery or whatever, because honestly, in theory, actually, no, that's probably because I literally do not have a power limit, whereas he still has a power limit from a 9070 XT, and I don't think he used a BIOS for one of the, like, really high power limit cards. I'm not even really sure how that would behave, Because the one, like, the really high power limit cards are either triple 8-pin or 12-volt high power. And you can't really get 9070s with 3 8-pins, I don't think. You usually get 9070s with just 2 8-pins. As far as I know, the 9070 he used has 2 8-pins. So I'm not sure what would happen if he tried to use a triple 8-pin BIOS, because I'm not sure how or if he tried to use a 12-volt high power BIOS, because I'm not sure how the GPU actually deals with the power limit per power connector. It may or may not like actually care. I don't know. Um, but anyway, so at this point, I guess I could also have a slight edge because I might be running better CPU settings. I mean, my minimum FPS is a lot higher. So, yeah. Anyway, I guess before, you know what? No, I want to give it more voltage because, like, this showed up in the previous video is like past a certain point, lowering the voltage offset slider, like, it just doesn't do that much, right? Whereas the first bump of core voltage, so like the first 20, 60 millivolts, gives the card a massive performance jump in Time Spy. So I'm kind of wondering if it does the same thing for Cyberpunk. So let's get the EVC2 hooked up. MP2868. No, find. And we want 22. And we're going to start with 35 millivolts. Let's see what that does. Oh, also what's nice is that we have the card, like, running, so we can already see that because normally when we're in this, like, hot idle state, or like active idle state, the card would sit at 0.7 volts. We're at 0.72. So that voltage offset already applied. So then, let's run the benchmark again. So when I was testing Time Spy, I went from what, like 31-ish thousand to 33,500. So, I don't know, we might be able to hit like 165 FPS. I might be overly optimistic. But I think that's what we're aiming for. That would be like 10% more than just like not having a power limit. Power draw hasn't really gone up very much yet, so we should have plenty of headroom for more voltage. Though I am kind of concerned that this setup might be actually a bit CPU bottlenecked. But we'll see. Because I don't like this. Like, I literally bought the game yesterday, so I don't know how like much CPU performance you need for this benchmark. For a given frame rate. Like with 3D Mark, say Firestrike, I know if you're at like 400 FPS, your CPU is a problem. Honestly, even at like 300 FPS, the CPU can start being a problem. But here, I have no idea. Okay, so that's 159. Okay, so that went up a lot, which is expected. So let's go plus 60 and just run it again. You know, considering the power consumption, we probably have a lot of headroom for extra voltage. Because Time Spy, I was pushing that to like 700 watts. We're nowhere near it. Admittedly, that's like 700 watts total system power draw, but yeah. The thing is, like, I'm wondering if that low power draw isn't because there's a CPU bottleneck, and so if we just smash more voltage into it, it might just stop scaling at some point. But, we'll see, I guess. The funny thing is, when you're CPU bottlenecked, it's not always like a hard FPS cap. That's like a lot of, like, I think a lot of people might think is like, oh, if you had a CPU bottleneck, it just stall at some frame rate. You usually don't. It's just that your performance gains start slowing down to a crawl. Was that an artifact? I think I actually saw a visual glitch for the first time ever on this card. Because normally it just crashes. It doesn't usually cause, like, geometry errors. Anyway, we're at 161. Okay, I'm thinking my initial goal of 165 FPS was maybe a tad low. This might be able to hit 170. Um, so, let's keep going, I guess. Actually, maybe not, because the scaling past a certain point kind of falls off a cliff, but... well, we'll see, I guess. Okay, I did apply that. Yeah, the only issue is I don't know how my card performed at stock. That would be like the ultimate comparison is like, because if my card was also, and this is another thing I'm not sure about, is like, if my card started at 118 FPS, then like at this point I'm at like we're at like crazy performance scaling. But I kind of wonder if maybe David's card wasn't more power limited than mine. But I don't know. I mean, I guess like I could take the power limit mod off. I should really switch, like put that mod on switches. Um, the main reason I haven't done that is like I can't find space like between the PCB and the heatsink to mount the switches to the card, and I don't want to run wires all the way to like the back. Oh, so we've already hit the like point of no more scaling, I guess, because that's 161 FPS again. Um, okay, but we should be able to start giving it a bit more negative offset at this point. So let's try minus 100. I wonder what kind of clock speeds we're hitting. So according to what? Wait, wait, what? We're hitting 34, like the effective. Wait, no, that's FCLK. I'm stupid. Where's core clock? Oh, okay. No, we're still at like 3228 and 3078 effective. Um, yeah, unfortunately, like the ups, like this is 1440p into a capture card, which is then what I'm seeing is on a 1080p monitor. You can't see anything. I can barely see anything. So I'm sorry. Like I don't know. Maybe there's some way to. Is there like a font size setting somewhere? I can't even read the settings menu. This is really not ideal. Uh, I see a font. I don't see a size. Um, well, yeah, we're screwed. So we'll just go with that. Let's just run it again with the new faster settings. I mean, it's also not impossible that we're just at the limit at this point, but that would be kind of lame. I swear I'm actually seeing like graphics glitches. Which is really weird because in all my, like with all the other benchmarks I run on the 9070, it doesn't usually, like the instability doesn't usually show up as glitches, it shows up as hard crashing. Or, wait, no, those are like falling leaves or something. Okay. 162. Man, the scaling really dies off after a certain point. Um, so I don't really want to give it more negative voltage offset just yet. Now, I did already test the, like, mess around with, like, running Cyberpunk on this a bit, but I was running, like, a ray traced preset when I was messing around, and it was at 1080p. Not the ultra preset that we're running right now. But when I was doing that, I noticed that the card seemed like, weirdly perceptive to having the V-Droop reduced. I'm not really sure why. It might just, like, interact with the boost algorithm better than the alternative, so we're gonna try that again. Well, we're gonna try that now, but yeah, we'll see. Because the one thing I've been wondering this entire time with the external voltage control is, like, does the driver, like, fight you over it? Because on NVIDIA cards, that is a thing. That if you try to get, like, external voltage control, the driver will actually actively start lowering the voltage requests. Which the card kind of seems to do that. The only issue is like if you intentionally try to, like, by concern with like, oh, like there are ways to volt mod the card to lie to the driver about what voltage it's getting. But my concern with trying to do that is that if you do that, I don't know what, okay, there are definitely graphical glitches going on. That is very interesting. But, um, but yeah, so the concern with if you try to fake the voltage readings, I don't know if like the boost algorithm will like not know that there's more voltage available. Because I'm not sure like what the card is using for judging like what a good boost clock is. Right? Because the way this like works with the external voltage control is that you give the card more voltage, the card detects that there's more voltage, and therefore it boosts more. But if you like were lying to the card that the voltage is lower than it actually is, would it actually boost more? I don't know. I'm really confused as to why we're not getting more boost, because it is not running that hot. It is seem to be a tad unstable. I wonder if maybe the fast timings might not be too much. So we're gonna try like 2700 without the fast timings. But yeah, it's not running that hot. It's not pulling that much power. But the performance isn't going up. I wonder, like, is it actually CPU bottlenecked? Or is it just... Because the thing is, in Time Spy, the same thing happened, right? Like, getting to 33,000 points was relatively easy. Going past 33,000 points was very slow. It's actually the annoying thing with, like, GDDR6 and its, just built-in error correction functionality, which admittedly is optional. Like, you can disable it, but, yeah, like, the annoying thing is, like, if the memory is a little bit unstable, it'll just error correct, instead of crashing. Or, like, producing a bunch of artifacts, right? Which means that you don't know, like, if the memory is a little bit unstable, you lose performance instead of just getting very obvious instability. But I think in this case, it might have been stable. Because I think this run is going to just be slower by like 2 frames or so. Oh no, it's about the same. I love it. Okay, so evidently the memory does not care about at all. I mean, like the minimums is like marginally slower, but yeah, evidently that was not the issue. Um, let's try more voltage then. Because it's not like we're pulling that much power, so like, why doesn't it boost more? And again, like, I just raised the voltage, and I look at my oscilloscope, and the voltage is still 1.02 volts. I swear the driver is actively reducing the voltage request right now. And it might be because it's detecting some kind of performance bottleneck, and it's so like, I'm not going to boost more. There's no reason to. There's, there's not enough work to justify a higher boost clock. Okay, now we're getting a little, yeah. The thing, like, TimeSpy, I was running all the way up to like 1.07, 1.08-ish. Which admittedly, maybe at 160 millivolts, we might see that. Um, it did nothing. It did absolutely nothing. Okay, we must, like, what is the card, like, upset about? I mean, it is also, like, again, I bought this game yesterday, so, like, I don't know how, like, this benchmark is supposed to behave. Um, so we might be just hitting a really hard CPU bottleneck at this point. But at the same time, like, yeah, the voltage just refuses to go up, which could still be an indicator of a CPU bottleneck, because AMD cards, if there's not enough work, they will simply not boost. Um, yeah, I'm going with this has to be CPU bottlenecked, because this power consumption is way too low, the voltage is way too low. I'm really leaning towards the card is just detecting, like, hey, this CPU's not, or I don't know. Actually, the thing is, I feel like if we were CPU well, no, because that's the issue. Is like AMD cards, and this is really annoying. So on NVIDIA cards, when you hit no, on old GPUs, when you hit a CPU bottleneck, you literally see gaps, like in the workload, right? So you literally see the GPU go all the way to like idle, and then you see the workload in between that, because when it's like waiting for the CPU. We're not seeing that here. But the issue is with modern AMD GPUs, they will dynamically downclock themselves based on how bottlenecked they are. So if we're on a CPU bottleneck right now, the card might actually just be like stepping on the brakes. Um, so this benchmark seems suboptimal for testing 9070s with no power limit. Because yeah, looking at the core clock, it's just not going up at this point. We've hit 3.1 gigahertz on the core. So I'm going with like we are very much CPU bottlenecked because the card is just not boosting higher. And I don't think anything I'm going to do is going to make a difference at this point. I mean, I guess I could overclock the CPU, but it's very limit. Even that's like super limited in terms of what I can try to do. Um, so I might have to revisit this with a faster CPU, but then that's going to make my results completely non-comparable to David's. And actually, he might have been hitting a CPU bottleneck as well. Especially because his minimums are worse than mine. Well, that did something, but not very much. Man, I got all excited that, like, oh, we're totally going to hit 170 FPS because the card isn't pulling any power. But it turns out the reason the card isn't pulling any power is probably because it doesn't have enough work to do. Yeah, so GPU clock effective went up another 10 megahertz. Yay. Progress. I mean, I don't, yeah, like, changing this isn't going to do anything. We're nowhere near the max frequency yet. Or at least it shouldn't do anything. You know what? Let's try it. I'm going to give it plus 65 megahertz and let's see if that makes a difference. It really shouldn't, but because like we're nowhere near 3.4 gigahertz. Because I'm pretty sure we were just like CPU bottlenecked at this point or something. Because this like TimeSpy also didn't scale past a certain point, but I was running TimeSpy at way higher voltages than this is running at. Though we are at 1.04 volts now. So maybe I've broken through the ceiling? Voltage is coming down. Oh, we're getting artifacting. That is just super interesting how that, like, doesn't... Wait, I think it's... Is it really bugged out? I haven't watched this enough times. I think the lighting just broke. It looks like the lighting just broke. Yeah. Oh, the floor's missing. Oh, yeah, the lighting's super broken. Hey, we broke through the ceiling and also completely broke the render. So this might be... Oh, and it's worse. Interesting. Wait, but okay, what if I lower this? One of the issues with the software readouts is that they're not necessarily fast enough to tell you what's actually happening. And on NVIDIA cards, the software readouts can straight up lie to you. Completely. Just like, they'll tell you frequencies that don't match performance whatsoever. So I'm like wondering if like the card was actually boosting like above 3.4 gigahertz, but the software just wasn't picking it up. And that's why it was like artifact, like why it was breaking everything. Because I don't actually know on what, like, time scale the boost algorithm for these cards is, like, capable of functioning at. It's probably at least millisecond time scale, if not faster. I have a suspicion that you might be noticing that we get these like little spikes in the workload occasionally. I suspect those are actually indicative of instability. $163.61. Okay, so it might have been overboosting. Oh boy. Okay. Wacky cards. Very wacky cards. Oh well, at least that makes things interesting, doesn't it? Okay, so I'm gonna try lower V Droop again. We may not reach 170 FPS, but I'm not yet giving up on 165. Man, that peak to peak is not fun to look at. It's well over 400 millivolts. What's crazy though is that actually, like, I'm getting that 400 millivolts peak to peak after I've added a bunch of capacitors to the card. So it's actually like that voltage regulation is not as bad as it was from the factory. It was a lot worse. Mostly in the overshoot department. I don't think the minimums have actually improved at all after adding extra capacitors. Um, but yeah, 163.1. Man, it really seems to have hit a wall again. So I'm gonna set this actually like really low for a little. Wait, no, minus 200. That's gonna be 3.2 gigahertz. So that's probably too low. But we're gonna set it to like minus 100 so that it stops at like 3.3. Because my main concern is that if we set this really low and it decides to try run at some crazy high frequency, it's probably just gonna crash. I'm gonna try minus 145. I am actually gonna give it a tad more voltage, 10 millivolts. So we're now basically at similar. Well, no, it's kind of similar to the like voltage offset I had for Time Spy, but we have way less V droop. So if we were running Time Spy, I imagine the core voltages right now would be getting kind of crazy. Um, I wonder if it would be even like possible to make a like clock speed readout for the GPU that's like fast enough to keep up with the actual like basically an oscilloscope for GPU core frequency, except like in software. I guess that could be possible. Maybe. I don't know. The main issue I'm like seeing with it is like how would you visualize that? I guess you could have like a similar to how you have like Like an oscilloscope is just voltage over time. I guess you could have a frequency over time graph. Okay, so more FPS, like very, very slightly more FPS. So now I'm going to start backing off the negative frequency offset, because that might give us more boost? I don't know. This is so weird. The effective clock has only gone up to 3.136. Also, the card really isn't pulling that much power. I swear it's CPU bottlenecked. I think I'll like, ultimately, I need to tear down this, like, test bench. Actually, I won't really be able to test the card after that. Damn. Okay, this should be faster, I think. We might have squeezed out one more frame. Except I need like 2 more frames because we're at 163 and I wanted 165. I guess I could try turn on the fast timings again, but those didn't really seem to make much of a difference. Imagine if we had proper memory timing control for GPUs. I would, if AMD gave us proper timing control for GPUs, I would forgive the boost algorithm, being as stupid as it is. The funny thing is, though, the only timing they would really have to expose is refresh interval, and that would, like, do all the heavy lifting, I think. Unless there's some, like, really messed up timings on JDEC GDDR6 settings. Okay, well, that did not go up by 1 FPS. This benchmark is surprisingly consistent. Okay, well, I guess we could try more voltage. In the form of less V-droop, which effectively raises the voltage by sending the voltage regulation to hell. And I'm not too concerned for the... Well, I'm actually somewhat less concerned about doing that than raising the actual offset more. No, the minimums really aren't... The minimum actually seems to be even worse than it used to be. I'm not really sure what could be done about that, though. Okay, we're now running at 1.05 volts and finally breached the 600 watt mark. Actually, we might have breached that earlier. I wasn't really paying that much attention to that. I was watching the FPS counter. 164. Okay, so this seems to be working. Less V-droop. I really do wonder, though, if this isn't hitting some kind of, like, CPU bottleneck at this point. Voltage hasn't really gone up. Minimums seem to have gotten... Nah, they're about the same. Man, I am so tempted to just, like... Well, yeah, I am very tempted to strap, like, a few tens of thousands of microfarads of capacitance to the VRM on these. Because it's just so noisy. And it's not even like, it's noisy at 20 megahertz bandwidth. So, like, I'm not even sure that it's particularly, like, super high frequency or anything. Then again, like, the configuration of the card right now is not the most capacitance that I've had installed on it. And it actually didn't, like, when I uninstalled some of the extra capacitors, it didn't actually make a difference. So, I don't know, maybe instead of just more capacitance, it should be, like, more multi-layer ceramics or something. 163.5. Okay, so that just went down a bit, but that was probably just down to variance. I'm going to turn the fast timings back on again. GPU effective frequency hasn't gone up at all. So the issue with, like, hitting a CPU bottleneck, especially in a benchmark, is that you'll start out with, like, X% of frames are GPU limited, right? And as your GPU gets faster and faster, you're going to get more and more CPU limited frames. So each frame is going to, like, so when you're drawing a frame, you have, like, the CPU, like, the time the frame spends on the CPU and plus the time it spends on the GPU, right? So at some point, the time it spends on the GPU for all frames is going to be shorter than the time the frames spend on the CPU. And at that point, your, like, FPS is just going to stop going up. But because not every frame takes the same amount of time to draw, and every frame, like, there's different things going on, you get, like, a mix, like, you know, like, you'll start out with, like, frames are 50% CPU time, 50% GPU time. Right? And, or, like, well, okay, I'm describing that badly. But anyway, the point is that, like, you'll progressively, like, you'll hit your, like, CPU bottleneck, I guess, asymptotically. Hey, we finally hit 165 FPS. Yay. Okay, I wonder what clocks we're at now. No, that's power consumption. GPU clock did not change according to the software. But of course, the software could be lying to us. So we shall not concern ourselves with what the software says. I mean, I guess I could try more negative offset on the core, though. I think probably most of that game was just turning the fast timings back on. I really wish there was something I could do about the memory clocks, but unfortunately there really isn't. Like, with these cards, touching any of the memory-related voltages, just, like, at best, nothing changes. At worst, it gets worse. And we crashed. And this probably broke the drivers. Because the last time I crashed in this, it broke the drivers pretty hard. So that's going to require, like, multiple reboots and stuff. Well, I guess we'll end it there. Because I did eventually reach my goal of 165 FPS. Oh boy. Okay, that's just the AMD driver, like, recovering, I guess. Because the mouse just froze and I was like, oh no, it just took the whole system down, but nah, it didn't. At least the GPU crashing is a little bit more elegant than it used to be, though. Even now, you still need multiple system restarts after a crash to get the... Well, I said it was more elegant, but it's proving me wrong. But yeah, so that was some, like, overclocking for Cyberpunk 2077. Because, yeah. Now, again, like, my main concerns is, like, I don't know if I'm running the, like, if my setup here is like correctly, because here's the thing, I don't really so much care about like getting. Well, I mean, I do care about having the fastest GPU, but the problem with a lot of like GPU benchmarks is that, and especially games, is um, if you pick a benchmark that is very CPU bottlenecked, right? It doesn't end up it becomes less of a like whose GPU is fastest and more of whose CPU is fastest. And so, yeah, like I'm not sure how comparable my results are to David's. Um, though at this point I, beat them by what, like 10%. Um, oh, I just opened another calculator. Anytime I need a calculator, I just make another one. Okay, it's not 10% because 165 is okay. So another like 8%. And the thing is like I don't know if that 8% is because of the GPU. Like I'd like to tell myself it's because of the GPU, but it could also just be CPU settings because his minimum FPS is so much worse than mine. Um, like I don't like yeah, and I have very little experience with this benchmark, so yeah. Um, Also, I kind of think that even I might be CPU bottlenecked. I mean, I've been whining about this entire video. It's just like, man, this really looks like a CPU bottleneck to me. Um, but yeah. Where was I going? Oh, right. The other thing is like, well, yeah. The issue is like, unlike with Time Spy, where clearly we were hitting like GPU thermal limits. Like, we're not hitting those here. So I feel like there has to be more on the table, but I don't think the GPU is the problem at this point, at least for the ultra preset of 1440p. Um, because yeah, like that scaling was like real. Like, I mean, it did the same thing in Time Spy where it didn't scale, but like it scaled more than this. I was running Time Spy at 700 watts, whereas here we barely made it over 600. Um, which to me is like an indicator of like, oh, the GPU just doesn't have enough stuff to do. Um, but anyway, hopefully you found this interesting. I kind of want to do more testing on this because, like, here's the thing that probably a lot of people don't understand. I like overclocking. Like, I just like seeing FPS number go up. So when it comes to overclocking, the whole like overclock to play games, that might be where I started, but at some point it switched to overclock because FPS number go up. So I am actually interested in like finding out how far this could be pushed. Because yeah, I really don't think 165 FPS is the peak of what a 9070 can do in Cyberpunk 2077 on the Ultra preset. Though I really do suspect at this point I'm probably going to have to use a faster CPU, because it doesn't make sense to me that it's pulling so little power and it's not scaling like with voltage increases or anything. Um, so then again, I mean, maybe it's memory bottlenecked, but that seems unlikely because we're not running ray tracing. And in non-ray traced workloads, the card seems to kind of actually in ray traced workloads it might be even more core heavy. So I don't know. Need to I guess like test the card more. I haven't really run it in much. Well, I've run a bit of Port Royal on it, but that's about it. Um, for ray tracing stuff. But anyway, that's it for the video. So thank you for watching. Hopefully you found this somewhat interesting, if not particularly useful. And if you'd like to support the channel, there's links in the description that you could check out. That would be very much appreciated because I, had to buy the card and the game. Yeah. So yeah, that's it for the video. Thank you for watching and goodbye.